Okay, welcome everyone. Hope you're doing well on this Monday afternoon. It's great to get back to our study of Rashi this year. New year, sort of. Not really new calendar year, and not yet new Jewish year, but we're inching towards it. Once you're in Elul, it's like a new year already. So we're going to do a Rashi today from the second Aliyah in Parshat Ki Teitze. Let me just get that up on my screen for you over here. Out of practice here with Zoom all these weeks. Here we go. Okay. So here we are. We're going to do the very first pasuk here in the second Aliyah of Ki Teitze. V'chiyah ve'ish chet mishpat mavet. It's a little bit of a gory pasuk, but if a person sins for which there's capital punishment, vehumat, and he was killed for it, v'talita oto al ha'etz, he should hang his body on a tree. Very gory image over here of an unfortunate situation. And then we get a bit of a caveat to the hanging on the tree with a couple of important halachot. Even though you're obligated to hang the body on a tree, lo talin nivlato al ha'etz, you're not allowed to leave it there too long. Ki kabor tikberenu bayom hahu, you have to bury it on that day. Why do you have to bury it so expediently? Ki kilalat eluhim talui, because it's the klala. We'll see this word a little bit more in Rashi. It's a klala for God to have this body hanging there. Velo titamet admatcha, you shouldn't defile your land, which God is giving to you as a portion. The law we're not going to get to here because it's not in Rashi, and this is a Rashi share. There's a lot of interesting halachot from this pasuk. A lot of the halachos that we know of and that we try to keep to about halanas hames, about burying someone expediently, come from this pasuk. There's a question Rishonim on this pasuk: is this limited prohibition? Is it limited specifically to the land of Israel? Because it seems the pasuk is saying the reason why we don't want it hanging is because it's a defilement of the land, meaning the land of Israel. So is it land of Israel specific, but in Chutz La'aretz, we don't care how long it's there, or we have no obligation to bury quickly, or does this apply everywhere? It's just an added element that happens to be in Israel about the defilement of the land. So in the end of the day, we try to bury expediently wherever we are, but there is more of an emphasis on it in Israel, and I think it all stems from this pasuk. In Yerushalayim, they even bury at night and as quickly as possible, no matter what, to try to expedite the burial. Okay, so let's go through the Rashis one at a time. It's a number of issues that come up in Rashi. First of all, who is this person? What did they do? And what kind of capital punishment did they get? Rashi says, Smichas Parshios Magid, Shimchasin Aviv V'imo Alav, Sof Shiyetze Latarbus Ra, V'yavor Averos, V'yischayev Misa, V'bezdin. Who are we talking about here? We're talking about the person that emerges from the immediately preceding passage, which is about the Ben Sora Umora, this very rebellious child, which the parents are supposed to give over to the Beis Din for capital punishment before they go off in a terrible way and do terrible things in the world. So it must be, says Rashi, that this person who's killed because of their sins is the Ben Sora Umora, whose parents were hesitant to carry out the prescribed etiquette over here and hand the child over to a Beis Din to be executed. They have too much rachmanis on their child for good reason. And therefore, they continue to raise the child. The child goes off in a terrible path. They do terrible things. They commit this terrible sin, and now they get capital punishment for it in the end of the day. That could be why these two passages here are connected according to Rashi. But no matter who we're talking about here, whether it's the Ben Sora or someone else, what kind of capital punishment are we speaking about? What kind of avera, right? All we know is chet mishpat mavet. Person did an avera that's liable for capital punishment. What avera did they commit? Rabbeinu
I'm playing the tennis. She just texted.
Okay, I'm gonna mute everybody. Sorry.
Hello.
There we go. Rabbeinu Amru, Kol Haniskalin Nitzlin, Shenamar Ki Kilalas Elokim Talui. So we learn from here, from the end of this passage, Kilalas Elokim Talui, that the klala of God is hung. So what do we learn from that? We learn that the person's sin over here is Kilalas Elokim. They're a blasphemer. And we know that the blasphemer's particular capital punishment is stoning. One of the capital punishments in the Torah is not hanging, it's stoning. So the person was stoned based on their cursing God or blaspheming God. So they get the capital punishment of stoning. And then in addition to the stoning, the Torah here is teaching us that the body also has to be hung afterwards, but not hung for too long. We understand that a person who curses God, mevarach here is a euphemism. It's not really blessing God, it's cursing God. Their punishment is through skila. So that's how we piece together all the particulars of this case. So this case is someone who cursed God, therefore gets capital punishment. In addition to that, our pasuk is telling us that the body has to be hung. And the next pasuk, Chaf Gimel, is giving us some caveats to the hanging. They can't hang for too long because it's kilalas elokim taloi, whatever that means. And that's the final Rashi we're going to get to. What's the problem with hanging the body for too long? What's the problem with not burying someone quickly? Aside from defiling the land, there seems to be something else going on here. It's not only lo titames ad mascha, it's also ki kilalas elokim taloi. Now we learn from kilalas elokim taloi that this is a case of cursing God, but there seems to be something else indicated here, that hanging the body is a kilalas elokim. What does that mean? So Rashi translates kilas elokim, that the taloi, the person hanging, the dead body hanging, becomes itself. Not only did they perpetrate a kilas elokim, not only did they curse God, but now they become, the hanging body becomes a source of kilas elokim. What is kilas elokim? Rashi translates zilzul shel melechu. It's a disgrace to the king. It's not really a cursing here. Kilalas is not cursed like klala, but kilalas here is zilzul shel melech. And Rashi later explains the etymology. Ki kilala shebamikra lashon hakel v'zilzul. Kamo v'hu kilalani kilala nimretzas. Kilala here with a kuf, as opposed to a chaf. Kilala here is from the language of kal, light. You become light in someone's eyes. It's a disgrace, disgraceful. And he gives the example here from Malachim Aleph, where David HaMelech is giving instructions to Shlomo HaMelech about people to take care of, and he says that Shimi ben Gera needs to be taken care of because he disgraced me in a certain way. Klala is disgrace, making something light. It's a zilzul, disgrace in some way. What's the disgrace over here? Sha'adam asoy b'demus diukno. Why is a hanging body of a human a disgrace to God? Because every human is created in the image of God. The Yisrael Banavhem, and Jews are the children of God. Not only does every human being have a spark of God created in the image of God, but Jews are extra stamped with the image of God because they not only have the spark of God in them, the spirit of God, and they're also God's children. They're associated with God. We could imagine this as a parable of two brothers who looked similar to each other. One became king, one got involved in bad things with bandits and eventually became hung. And if the bad brother gets hung and he looks similar to the brother who's a king, people are going to look at the hanging body and say, oh my gosh, the king is hanging. And what a disgrace to imagine the king is hanging. There's a lot to say here about burial and hanging and disgrace of dead bodies. It's a lot of halachos here. But this Rashi is what jumped out at me. It's a beautiful, beautiful Rashi. We should never forget that Adam Asui B'Demus Diukno, that we are all created in the image of God. And that means when we carry ourselves in the world, we represent the Jewish people, Achin, Domin Zelazeh, and we represent HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We're Banim Lashem. We're children of God, created in His image. And therefore, this is an extreme example, right? But in every example of life, when we do something, people will point and say, oh, God is this, God is that, because we are the bearer of God's image and God's name here in the world, and that's a big responsibility to be able to carry. Thank you so much, everybody. I hope you have a great rest of the day. We'll see you tomorrow.